All right, we're back. Morse Code Podcast. Dan Morse, Sophie Priap, Cambodian Prince. How are you?
I'm
Good
doing
evening.
well. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. So, as you can probably see by the title of the episode and the picture and whatever else you've seen about this one, another really cool guest. Excited to chop it up with Mike Giardi tonight. We talk some football. We talk some Patriots. We kind of talk all sorts of stuff. But Sophie, you hooked this one up. So, anything you want to say to our audience before we transition over to the interview with Mike?
Not too much. Just that, obviously another cool guy to have on, just because he went from, if you watch the Celtics, or I guess like Comcast Sports New England when it was that, and then they transitioned to NBC Boston, he was on there for a bunch of years, and then got landed the gig with NFL Network. So honestly, to be able to say that we're talking to someone who literally works for the NFL is pretty sweet. Pretty cool to have him on, and looking forward to this conversation.
Let's see where it goes. Sophie, hit the button and transport us over to that interview, please.
Here we go. All right, we're back. This is Sophie, obviously Dan Morse with me here on the Morse Code Podcast.
Yep.
And here is our newest buddy, straight from the NFL Network. And if you're a New England sports fan, you've definitely seen him on Comcast Sports Boston, and obviously when they transitioned to NBC Boston. But yeah, now he's with NFL Network. He's with the big boys, Mr. Mike Giardi. How we doing?
What's up, Mike?
Man, thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you hopping on, giving us some time. Obviously, your expertise.
I got to cut you off right away. I mean, look at the hat. Right away with Sophie with a hat. Right? So there's we have inherent biases on this podcast. Is that fair to say?
We might be from New England.
Potentially. They're also.
I'm not knocking you for it, but I mean, we just got to point that out that it's right there. I'm sure you picked that one out today too. You had to have that one on today.
Oh, it was an accident. I didn't even realize till you pointed that out.
They're actually one of our biggest sponsors, TB12, and if you can see the background, Michael Jackson is a big sponsor as well. So we contractually have to have certain product placement in certain places. So you know the business, how it goes.
Sure,
it's all about money.
Two of our biggest fans. Yeah, if you're not watching this and you're only listening to the audio, me and Dan have pretty modest backgrounds here, while Mike has some footballs and some actual professional shit. So I'm gonna throw up my driver's license or birth certificate. Those are some of my biggest accomplishments.
Yeah, being born and driving.
I mean, look, this thing got slapped together in about 5 minutes when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So, I think the shelf was from Wayfair. We put that together in about 30 minutes. After it got delivered from Amazon, it's like everything had to happen very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You said you're at home, but I'm pretty sure we're looking at Canton right now.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd have a selfie ring in my life. One of those light rings.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, I never thought that would happen. So
it's a nice touch.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it. Wanted to ask you a little bit about football, but also just wanted to hear a little bit about your perspective as a reporter, specifically in the NFL, and your time just covering the Pats when you were here, specifically in New England. I've wanted to ask this of pretty much anyone who's covered the Pats. What's the funniest run-in with Belichick that you've had, either a press conference or away from a press conference?
Bill Belichick, not Steve Belichick.
Right. Yeah. I'll give you one that it relates to Belichick, but it's not Belichick directly. So they did joint practices in Atlanta. I want to say like maybe 9-10 years ago. It was a while ago. Flowery Branch, I think it just opened. They just opened their facility. It's a beautiful facility. But so when you host the joint practices, it's your rules. Patriots, of course, we know notoriously very strict with what can get shot and where you can stand and what you can do.
Strict?
Yes, I know. But Atlanta was super loose. So we're literally, they have, I think it was 3 football fields side by side. And we're on the field in between the 2 fields where they were doing most of their work. So Dante Scarnecchia is coaching up the offensive line. They're doing one-on-ones against Atlanta's defensive line. And I'm standing 5 yards away from Dante. So, he's lighting the guys up when they don't do what they're supposed to do. He's praising them when they do. Guys are taking laps and whatever. So this whole thing's going on. And it certainly was cool to be in the middle of that. But also, like the Patriot players are a little wary of how that works.
Mm.
So Stephen Gostkowski is standing there because obviously most of the time kickers and punters aren't really doing very much. And he starts talking to us and he won't make eye contact with us. He's looking this way. So we're talking to him, but his eyes he never even turns his head. And we're having a full-blown conversation. We're talking about his time at Memphis. We're talking about him being a pitcher and why he chose football over baseball and the whole 9 yards. And then finally it was like, hey, how come you won't make eye contact with us? And he's like, what will happen if we make eye contact? If he sees that I'm actually talking to you, because he's got the helmet on, he sees that I'm talking to you, I'm going to get reamed out, and I don't want to get reamed out. So that just tells you sort of the power of Belichick, who's, clearly immersed in way more important things going on in the field. But Stephen, 50 yards away, is still petrified that he was going to get yelled at or lit up at a team meeting because he was talking to, Mike Giardi on the sidelines.
Yeah.
What year do you think that was?
I think it was I want to say 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. Yeah, they did the joint practices. That's sort of when the joint practices started to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right around the time when they started doing a lot of those. And that was, those are always my favorite thing of the preseason, is to be able to watch those because it's a different level of competition. And you don't, once you get about 4 or 5 days into training camp, when you're practicing against your own guys, it's like,
Yep.
he knows what I'm doing. I know what he's doing. He grabs me when I do this, this, it's just, everything it's hard to play it honest. So when they get to do the joint practice, at least it opens it up because, they're doing what they do and you're doing what you do. So, are you ready to stop it?
And that was peak Belichickness too, I would say, in those years. Because it seems like, at least from a fan perspective, he softened up a little bit. He's no, I don't know who's he's no fucking Santa Claus or anything like that. But he does seem to be a little, not as rough around the edges as he used to be. But
yeah, because I think that the athlete has changed. This isn't 1985. This isn't 1990, whatever. This is constant development, and the players, they make a ton of money. Certain players or whatever, you come from different backgrounds. Not that he wasn't dealing with that before, but I think there is a little bit more power to the players, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think the smart coach realizes I got to adapt to the guys I have on my team so I can get the best out of them. Doesn't always work. You don't always get, he couldn't get the best out of Ocho Cinco. We couldn't get the best out of Hainsworth. Some of those guys, but there's plenty of guys that he has managed to reach that had struggled in other places or tapped out, checked out. So,
Randy Moss, excuse me.
Always got to adjust.
Yeah, I feel like those joint practices are just inevitable for a fight. Whether I see it in Hard Knocks or on NFL Network or something. And you're right. It's almost 4 or 5 days of, practicing against your own guys. First time you get to really go out there and do it with other guys. It's I'm just thinking back to maybe not so much in New England, and you would know better than I do, but it's almost all right, just a quick burst of unleashing all these built up emotions. It's not a real game. There's not real refs there. Let's just kick each other's ass for a couple hours and get the hell out of here.
It's a good point because Belichick has a hardcore rule about no fighting.
Yeah, I believe it.
Throughout. And there was
I didn't know that.
I'd say it was Gilmore's first year. Gilmore and Edelman got into it in the end zone during training camp. And the Patriots were really short on receivers that day. A bunch of guys had been nicked up, weren't practicing, and they got into it. They're on the ground, they're rolling around. I don't even know. I don't think they threw a punch, but whatever. It was heated, and he said, "Get out!" And they both had to leave, and that was it for them. And I think Chris Hogan and Slater both had to basically run every rep for the final hour of practice, doing stuff to their hamstrings because it was probably a little bit too much, at that point in camp. So. But that's his rule. I know that when Jacksonville was here, I remember talking to Doug Marrone, and Marrone was like, "Oh yeah, that's his rule. So we're gonna do the same thing." We told our guys, "You fight, you're out." They had the 1 year I think with Chicago where Malcolm Butler and Alshon Jeffrey got into it, which was kind of funny because Malcolm is such a competitive dude. Alshon's a monster of a human being, as you well know. Alshon's got his hand extended and just holding Malcolm. It was Malcolm was doing that the kid thing.
Yeah.
But you can't hit him. His arms aren't long enough. So yeah, those are always good times because I think that it brings a level of excitement for the players too. It's not just the fans that have been able to watch training camp in previous years, or us getting to watch and evaluate as best we can as reporters. But I think for the players too, it's kind of like, finally, I get to go against somebody else.
Yeah.
Those Sports Center highlights are always so funny when they, they only had the 1 or 2 camera angles, but it's just a huge scrum of guys being like, no, it's 100 degrees. I'm going to whoop your ass right now.
Yeah.
If you really think about it too, is there anything more stupid than throwing a punch at a guy wearing a helmet? Like, in hockey, they have the fights and they're supposed to take their shields off or whatever if they're going to actually, follow the letter of the law and fight the way they're supposed to fight in the league. In the NFL, you start fighting. I mean, I hit you with my hand, I'm going to break my hand. If my hand's not covered up, it's like that.
Yeah.
Grab the guy's face, twist it a little bit, and then leave it be.
It's interesting because I think I'd like to ask Miles Garrett that question. He kind of he kind of took it into his own hands and maybe said, you know what? Yeah. You're right. I'm not going to punch you in the face with your, when you're wearing a helmet. I'm going to try and take yours off and then punch you in the face with your helmet. So he's a next level type of athlete.
You see though what it did for him. What did he sign? A $25 million deal.
A lot of bread. Yeah.
Interesting. His was the highest paid contract for a defensive player. So it didn't seem to hurt him any.
It's the formula. Yeah. Let me ask you a quick question, Mike, going back to a little more you personally. We mentioned it. I forget if we mentioned this when we started recording or before the show. What was that transition like going from regional coverage to the NFL network?
I'd always, I guess as you sort of, I wouldn't say that when I was 22 when I was starting out in the business, but I thought, this is what I want to do.
A year ago, you're saying?
Yeah, it's in the rearview mirror for a long ways ago. I never targeted this. It's just sort of something that developed. They saw me from all those years of the Patriots, and there were a couple conversations maybe prior to, several years prior to me coming over for them about, would you be interested type thing. And it's something that I kind of had in the back of my mind as I sort of advanced, because I think I wanted to. It's really nice to be able to cover just one sport.
Yeah.
When I was at Comcast/NBC Sports, I did a ton of football. Obviously, I jumped into hockey when hockey season was over, but I did the Red Sox. I covered World Series. We did coverage I wasn't a primary Celtics guy at NBC, but I did it prior to getting there, and I covered them winning a championship in 07-08. So that was all cool. Those are unbelievable experiences that I will, I'll put them somewhere, they're in the pecking order of things I'll never forget. But it was nice at this point to sort of devote all my energy to one sport, and then get to become a fan again of the other sports, if you will. Like, you're in the middle of it, and you feel like I have to watch game 65 of the Red Sox playing the Brewers, because I know I'm going to have to talk about it tomorrow, and I'm not really into it. It sort of saps a little bit of your love for some of that stuff out. And now it's sort of like, I can be a fan. I can sit there and tweet and say whatever the hell I want about this guy or that guy if I'm not enjoying what's happening. Whereas sometimes you got to be a little bit more politically correct, obviously, when you're covering it. So, but the adjustment was incredibly easy for me because they're not going to see this, but I'll say it anyway. My bosses are awesome. The guys that I work for in the newsroom, which is based in Culver City, Culver City, California, unbelievable group of guys. Dave, Todd, Sperry, Dave Schott, John Marvel. They just kind of let you do what you need to do, and obviously we work under the flag of the NFL, but I've never been censored. I've never been told, don't do this, don't cover that. Obviously there are certain things that you have to be 100% positive that it's right. You got to get both sides before you do things. And sometimes you might have something that turns out to be absolutely true and somebody else breaks it because we have to go through maybe one extra step of just making sure we have both sides and making sure that it is as balanced as it possibly can be. But I love it. It's been great. I was really looking forward, obviously, to this year. I mean, I still am. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to certainly be different, but it's been an easy transition because I think they're really good at what they do and they let me do what I do.
By the way, happy anniversary, because August makes 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the cake that I sent you, it should be there tomorrow. Check your
Nice.
Check your
I got your
DMs.
email, so check your
Should I have my dog
messages
tested
for
first,
delivery
though?
updates.
Should I have my dog tested first and make sure, you never know, strangers send you stuff. We gotta.
No, we're good. We would
No,
never
we're
treat a
we're
friend of
we're
the
good
show like
people.
that.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
But no, I did want to ask you what's like the coolest perks of working for the league? I assume those footballs behind you are free.
Yeah, they are full. I, you know,
Do you get
I don't
asked for
know.
tickets?
Oh, no, I just think, honestly, like, I just think it's the level of respect you get in other places. Obviously, I had spent whatever 17, 18 years working in New England covering the Patriots. I wasn't covering the league. I was covering the Patriots. Yes, I talked to the other teams when they played them, but that wasn't what I was focused on. Every day was about generating content about the Patriots, and especially during this pandemic. I had 6 different teams, I think, this offseason that I dealt with. And, some of these places have never met me in person. I spent time in Tampa covering Patriots Buccaneers games, but I'm not dealing with Tampa people. Now I'm dealing with Tampa people. I spent time in Atlanta, Flowery Branch for the joint practices, but I'm not, Thomas Dimitroff probably couldn't have picked me out of a lineup a couple of years ago. And the fact that you're able to now say, hey, I work for the NFL Network, and, things it opens some doors. I think people, sort of respect that the brand, and then I think, are a little bit more forthcoming with us. So that's, to me, that's the biggest perk, because that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in learning as much about your team and what's going on as I can.
Yeah. So I did want to, obviously, us and our listeners, of course, want to pick your brain a little bit about what's going on currently going into the NFL season. So you kind of touched on it earlier. Obviously some question marks, to put it lightly, going into the season. I thought I saw something interesting. I think I saw you tweet it yourself today, about the players opting out deadline, which it seems like it's a quote unquote deadline at 4:00 today. I never even thought about that, but yeah, like, what is the difference between opting out at 3:00 p.m. today and opting out like a month from now, or like a week from now?
Or they couldn't call it opting out. They just basically said they're retiring. Put your contract on hold. So, just like Gronkowski last April, right? He retires. Is he a free agent? No, he's not a free agent. They still won't. If he wants to come back, he has to go through them first.
Yeah.
He's contracted employee for the Patriots, and obviously when they made the decision, he wanted to come back and wanted to play for Tampa. Okay, well then you have to give us something for him, because he's our property. And that would be exactly how it would work here. But I think the other thing too is, I guess the minor difference is with the opt-out, there were those stipends. If you're high risk, it was $350,000, no strings attached. If you just decided to opt out because you just didn't feel like this is the right thing to be doing right now during a pandemic, it's $150,000, and that you have to pay that back next year, assuming that we're back to
I didn't know that.
Hopefully normalcy, which is an interesting thing, because there were several players that would be were undrafted free agents who opted out. $150,000 to pay back. I don't know that they have that kind of money. You're an undrafted free agent. If you're a high-end undrafted free agent, somebody really wants you, you might get 80,000 to sign or something like that, but nothing 100,000 maybe, but you're not getting 150. So, those guys made a decision that it wasn't right for them. And I think everybody should respect that, because look, we're dealing with something we've never dealt with before, and maybe we're not dealing with it so well. So, but yeah, that's, Jamie Collins is the one who brought it up today in his meeting with the Lions, but I've talked to several guys, and that's, I think that was one of the beasts. If you go back to Devin McCourty, I think it was last week, talking about the NFL and sort of shuffling this opt-out date, because it was sort of a moving target, and they wanted to close the window on it, and make it closer to the beginning of camp, which they essentially got, obviously it being a Thursday deadline, saying, hey, we just got in the building on Monday as a team. You've been doing your individual stuff and your testing and all that and quarantining, but as a team, as 80 or 90 guys, whichever you've opted to do as a team, we didn't get into the building together until Monday, and we won't do contact until the 16th, 17th. So that's a huge, look, could you imagine, like, hey, you get to the 17th and you get out there and you say, all right, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this with the Oakley shield that they're trying to get players to wear. right? And I go out there and I do it, and I go, I can't breathe in this thing. I just can't do it.
Someone came out today and basically said that. I think it
Yeah.
was maybe Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
It was a D-line. He's like, I can't play in this thing.
JJ Watt, who said it. I think it was,
Okay.
yeah. Whatever. Same difference, right? But
300 pounds.
109 degrees, it's 109 degrees of training.
Yeah.
So it's hard enough to breathe anyway. And now you're going to put this Darth Vader shield mask on you, going to get air. Just, it's going to be really hard to do. So I know some guys have said they're absolutely going to do it because, again, they feel like that's the safest way to keep themselves safe. But it's a huge challenge. So I could totally see you get around that 17th, 18th, 19th, and guys finally get out there and try to hit and try to run around with it and say, well, I can't do that. Or stuff's flying around and I just don't feel comfortable, and that's that. So, I don't think it's going to be a mass exodus, but I wouldn't be surprised to see several guys, a bunch of guys, whatever, a dozen guys say, I'm not doing this.
Do you think there's any like legit big names out there who would consider, like we had someone on before, we were asking like, who's the next big name? Cause I don't know if you do, I'd say probably Hightower is the biggest name at this point.
Yeah, I would think so too.
So like, can you see like a big quarterback or a big,
maybe the
fantasy player dropping out?
Probably the quarterbacks look at it and say, I don't get hit anyway. So
good point.
I'm socially
great. Yeah.
Promotion anyway.
Very friendly virus towards quarterbacks with today's rules.
And I think that there's, in some cases, there's either so much money at stake for those players. Hightower had made $45 million or so before he decided to do what he did. Chung was up around 31, 32 when he decided to do what he did. Cannon, same thing, 30. And look, again, I'll say it a million times. So I know they've gotten flack in some areas.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on behind closed doors,
For sure.
And Pat talked about his parents live with him. His dad's 75 years old. All right, you're automatically high risk because you're in that age group and then he's got a baby coming and all that. So
it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the push and pull is I think some of these guys look at it and say, man, can I suck it up for 6 months? Hopefully stay healthy, and there's $15 million at the end of this rainbow. And then there's some guys that say, look, I made my money, or it's just not worth it. I think there are probably some guys that opted out who they don't love football like they did, or they just don't love football anymore. And they're like, well, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
Assuming we have a season, what do you think the optics of, you've seen the bubble for the NBA and the NHL. Let's say me, you, and Dan want to go to a game. I assume you're going to invite us once the cameras come off. But let's say me, you, and Dan want to go to a game. What do you think that the not on-field experience, but what do you think that's going to look like? Like, how would that work with there being so many season ticket holders? How are they going to do social distance? My biggest question is, if there's someone who's a season ticket holder on the 50-yard line, is that person going to have to sit? Well, where are they going to have to sit? They can't all sit there.
No, I mean, so I know that in some of the proposals that teams have had, getting fans into the stands, and obviously everybody's, at this point that is trying to do it is kind of admitting we're, 15,000, 20,000, however, whatever size the stadium is, and trying to cluster, 8 or 10 people here and 8 or 10 people here, and socially, this is your family, you guys can sit together here, and then this group's over here. It's going to be a massive challenge, obviously, and it's a challenge that they're going to want to try to meet, because having 15,000 people in the stands brings 15,000 game tickets sold and all that, and the concessions that come with it, or however they're gonna work that. So it's not 70,000, but you'll take the money that you can get to try to make up some of the profit that they're losing this year by not having fans in the stands. But I have a million questions. Where do guys come in? Where are people going to come in? How are they going to work that part of it? I know, I'm trying to think of who was it. Maybe it was the Vegas stadium, where everything is like they already converted. Everything is going to be touchless. So, and actually, I think Vegas is the wrong example, because Vegas just said they're not having fans. But somebody went to the all virtual, like you don't pay for anything with money.
Nice.
Everything
That's
is
cool.
done, with your card number, and that's that. You want 4 hot dogs, it's going on your card. You want 4 beers, it's going on your card.
Get us next time.
Yeah.
Those are IOUs.
I know. It's just crazy to think that we're at this point, and then I really don't know how it's going to look. I mean, it's certainly going to be different. I don't. I mean, you already know they're gonna tarp off the first whatever 8, 10, 12 rows of the stands. I know for us personally on game day, the protocol is we aren't on the field. When we're normally on the field, we don't get to go on the field. We'll be in the first row of the stands to do TV, and then press box has already been divvied up. They're already putting plexiglass, and they went from 200 seats to 60 or whatever it is. So there's all kinds of stuff that they're still probably trying to wade through. Obviously the most important thing is what's happening on the field and what's happening with your team, and then you worry about the pieces after that. And I think there's a lot of people that are spending 16, 18 hours a day trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work.
People aren't even going to want to. I mean, just personally, I'd be skeptical of just even going to the bathroom as a fan. Like how would that work? It's just a line of 20 urinals. Like I'm picturing I've only been to a couple Pats games, but I mean, you know what it looks like at every one of those arenas and stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I know like some people talk too about, or some teams have talked about, like, even if there aren't fans in the stands, allowing tailgating. And then I'm thinking, well, so we're going to bring a bunch of people into a parking lot. Are you going to socially distance the cars? And then, like, people start drinking beer, they're having food, and then they're starting to throw the football around. They're throwing the football around with the car 5 cars over. And, I don't know. I mean, it just, there's so much that I still think we don't even know about the virus itself to even make, great decisions about what's happening. But it just seems like there's so much to overcome with that aspect of it. Never mind what we're trying to accomplish with getting the guys on the field and having them hit each other for 3 hours and play a football game.
Yeah, we're trying to get some Bills Mafia representatives on the show to give us their insight into what they expect from 2020. Someone's going to get killed.
That's the thing to do on a Sunday in Buffalo, right? I mean, they look forward to those 8 Sundays a year. Yeah, and now they have a team that they feel like can win the AFC.
Good point.
Really? Come on, we finally, after all these years of sort of toiling and anonymity, being average football teams, now we feel like we have a team that can actually win the division. We're not going to have fans there.
Yeah, we can't throw each other through tables anymore. Like, what the hell? Come on, NFL, be better.
Well, at least they have a quarterback who socially distances all his passes to his receivers.
That's very cool.
I know we're coming up on time here, Mike. Question. Now, this is a nonsense question, but I still want your opinion anyways. Okay. Dan knows this. This is kind of not a running theme, but 2 of my favorite plays I'm going to list along with a third play, and I want you to rank these. Okay. It might be innocuous to you, but not to me.
Gotcha.
Rank these. Long field goals, pinned punts. So, and specifically, if you punt one down to like the 1 yard line and it's about to bounce into the end zone, and then Matthew Slater, friend of the show, dives in, bats it back to the 1. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then the overtime coin toss. I'll hang up and listen.
I'm going down punt.
Mm-hmm. As your favorite or your least favorite?
That's my favorite. That would be my favorite of that. There's some athleticism involved there. The guys running down there getting double teamed as the gunner and then still making the play.
Oh God, that's awesome.
Field goals are. I mean, everybody can kick a 60-yard field goal now. Now, if you want to say long field goal in bad weather,
or in crunch time.
Now we're talking. So I would put that 2 and then coin toss.
Yeah, because we were talking
when that
about
coin is in the air. Oh man, talk about heartbeat skipping.
Because we were talking about like a punter who is typically one of the least cool people on the team, no matter which level of skill level you're playing at. And or maybe field goal kicker as well. You can either have, like, we've seen field goal kickers, you miss 3 field goals in a game, you're unemployed by the next day. Yeah. But the difference, like on the spectrum between that being the low and then the high of a game-winning field goal at the end of the game, everyone picks you up. It's like a Rudy moment. You can have a really cool or really crappy day as a special teams player in general.
Yeah, if you put the addendum on that, if somebody puts the addendum on that, and we've got it clutch time in weather, like maybe clutch time in weather would go number 1.
Yeah, I agree.
I still think maybe probably clutch time. But I mean, are we talking like a 35-yard field goal?
No,
No,
big boot.
43 or
5
more.
plus.
Yard field goal. Who cares?
Mhm.
You could probably make a 35-yard field goal.
Yeah. Well,
No.
I can't. But anyway.
Hey, at least someone believes in us.
Last thing, Mike, then I promise we'll let you go. This is something else we've been asking some of our Boston guests. Maybe I'll ask you. Have you ever been to Nashua, New Hampshire, by chance?
Yeah.
Really? That's where we're from.
You want let me just give you a quick little
Please.
side note. My dad is in the New Hampshire Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame, High School Hall of Fame. I don't know what it is. Some sort of Hall of Fame in New Hampshire.
We're both in it. Yeah.
Really good athlete in the 60s. Went to Syracuse, played football at Syracuse. Played on a semi-pro football team in Nashua, the Nashua Colts, back in, I don't even know what year that was, 1968.
Yeah.
Dan,
you've got one of those jerseys.
We used to have one forever, and I think maybe my brother spilled spaghetti sauce on it or something. It was like old school white with the black numbers, and then they're like the shoulder. Good jersey.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Reason I ask, there's a sandwich shop / bar, the Nashua Garden, and they have sandwiches dedicated towards some Boston athletes. There's like a Larry Bird one, David Ortiz one. They don't have a Mike Giardi one yet. I assume they're in the process of making it. But if they're listening, and I'm sure they are, what would be the Mike Giardi sandwich at the Nashua Garden? What would that consist of?
It's my go-to.
Okay.
It's a banana, and it's protein butter on top of it. That's the Mike Giardi sandwich. It's not a sandwich, really.
Didn't see that one coming. Yeah.
No, you didn't. But I think every day during the pandemic, that's been my lunch. A banana with protein butter on it. So, I mean, that's not really exciting.
I'd buy one. The hell with it. Yeah. So, like I said, just split the royalties with us 3 ways when they finally put it on the menu. Then we'll go from there.
You guys, I'm having fun. You guys want? We can keep going. Let's keep going. If you want to.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. So.
I mean, first of all, we did say that he could break some news, so I'm just trying to hold up his time so that some text message comes through. What's Schefter saying to you right now?
I don't talk to him. No, boss has asked me if I want to do TV tomorrow. Well, yes.
Can we come?
There you go. There's your breaking news. I'm doing TV tomorrow.
All right.
That's
the coolest thing that we've heard on this show, period, not just on this episode. A lot of mention of Matthew Slater, very Matthew Slater heavy episode. Who's the coolest, like, nicest person to cover, either on the Patriots or whoever, but who's been just like a super genuinely nice guy?
Patriots have had some awesome dudes come through there, especially recently. I mean, Devin and Jason are two of the McCourtys are two of the know, they're just two of the best dudes. Period. Matthew's an incredible guy. In fact, last year I went up to Matthew after the whole Antonio Brown nonsense for whatever that was, 10 days. Mm-hmm. And look, none of those guys wanted, especially at the end, nobody wanted to be answering those questions. And he did it. And a couple other guys did it too, McCourtys. And I sought them all out because I was like, I know you didn't want to talk for someone you barely know, who had done some, at least been accused of some pretty crappy stuff and was your teammate for all of a week. But I appreciate you being, standing there and as a leader of the team, sort of taking the time to answer questions and at least give us something to work off of and sort of an idea of what the mindset was inside that locker room at the time. So I have a ton of respect for guys like that, not only because it makes my job easier, but I just think there's a level of accountability there that it's good to see. Trying to think of who else. I mean, there's really a lot of good guys. You know who I really like? I really like Damian Harris, the running back they drafted last year in Alabama. Didn't really play. He and Stidham have some good Auburn, Alabama trash talk on that game. That was fun to be around. Deron Harmon was a great guy to deal with. Stephon Gilmore.
Yep.
Really chill dude. Like, you can barely hear him when he talks. But he's funny. He's kind of like a sneaky trash talker too, because they'll be like, you held Robbie Anderson to 2 catches today. 2 catches. You pushed me off both times.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and you're like, did he just? I got to go back and listen to that. I'm not sure because I can barely hear it. So you're like, if you're on the side of him, if you're not looking directly at him and like pretty much right in front of him, you can't hear what he says. you pretty much have to go to your recorder or whatever and listen to it afterwards. Like, oh yeah, he totally just trash talked Robbie Anderson, all casual, and that's kind of funny. So yeah, there are a lot of those are the recent ones I can think of, but there've been a lot of good guys that have come through there.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Can you confirm live on our show that Jason and Devin McCourty do in fact share a room and sleep in bunk beds?
They do not. They do not.
Okay.
They might share the same T-shirt collection though. They're both T-shirt sports.
Good point. Yeah.
It's funny too because I was
very
like,
well dressed.
You guys should go into business. Like that could be a post football. Like you guys come up with all these different shirts because a lot of times they're the ones who like, oh, I want to do this, and they, whatever they call their people. Like, sure, man. Like you should, people would buy these things.
Every time they were on the local shows, yeah, they're always in like graphic tees, which actually brings me to my next point. So I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. I noticed you got some NFL garb on right now.
Yes, this is the
that's
last year's polo.
Oh, nice.
I like that.
Yeah.
Dan and I are working on making some shirts for the show. I've got your email. If you want to exchange information, you want to throw some NFL swag, like I won't stop you. Just throwing that out there. We'll trade.
Yeah, I mean, you guys XLs? Just, I mean, I'm a big guy.
Soapy's a boys XL, youth XL. Yeah.
Well, boys XL on the body, but men's XL in the sleeves.
Nice.
All custom. Yeah. You know what? Here's a good one while we have you.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to get your take on this. This is an NFL Network original. Speaking of 100, any thoughts on the NFL 100 list that came out recently, voted on by the players? Any snubs? And even before that, do you have, I mean, I don't know. You don't have any insight into that stuff before the air and stuff, right? You watch it like everyone else?
They'll give us an email like the day of. This is what's going to be on the show today.
Yeah. Okay.
We're sort of embargoed. We're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Honestly, they want me to tweet it out at 8:00 in the morning.
It's like the NBA draft.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with those lists are that they're, it's all to the players,
right?
And you're asking the players. Like if you talk to the guys, they're not watching. Devin McCourty is not.
I agree.
Another safety play. He's watching the team he's got to play that week. There may be things that, Belichick might bring out some Ed Reed stuff, but, Ed Reed is not a current player. So, yeah, I think it's really hard to sort of get a real gauge on that. I mean, let's face it, if you're doing a 100 list after this season, yes, I know Lamar was the MVP, phenomenal year, absolutely deserved it. But if you're 100 best players, Pat Mahomes is the best player. You're taking Pat Mahomes.
I agree. And I was going to ask you who you think the best player in the NFL is. It's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. I think
I can't imagine a planet or a universe where someone wouldn't think watching football and reading his 2.5-year resume that he's not the best football player on the planet. Yeah. Like there's no one on planet Earth who would trade Patrick Mahomes for Aaron Donald or for any Michael Thomas, any of those top 5 guys. It's just never going to happen.
Not even close.
No.
Bill Simmons used to do that ranking. I don't know if he still does it now in his new place, but he used to do like the trade chart value. And obviously he's a huge basketball guy, so he would always be basketball. And the way he divided was like, when I make my list every season, I'm putting Tim Duncan ahead of LeBron James because I wouldn't trade Tim Duncan for anybody or whatever. However he's doing it. So that's sort of the way you're talking. That's sort of the way I see it. I mean, obviously the list is about last year. They're trying to be last year specific, but even last year specific, when Pat got healthy.
What else is he supposed to do?
Right.
He won the Super Bowl.
Throw and catch his own touchdowns.
Good point. He is slacking in it. His receiving numbers were definitely down last year. I think he had 0 catches for 0 yards.
Maybe you worked on it during the pandemic.
He didn't hit a single field goal more than 50 yards. So
not
enough people are paying attention to that.
No.
And he did backspin a punt at the 1-yard line. So he's trash in your eyes. I know.
Disappointing season.
Yeah,
disappointing season. To say the least.
No?
What's that?
Is he top 10 for you? I mean,
I don't know.
Borderline.
He's on top 15 looking in, outside looking in. He'll make some noise this year for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's promising. Speaking of quarterbacks, I know I'm sure you're still New England at heart. What was going back to the tweet comes out, Cam Newton signing with the Patriots? Thoughts on the Cam Newton signing, and then thoughts on him going into the season for New England? Because we're
Yeah.
both Patriots fans.
Yeah. So I would say the cost was what the asking price was in March versus what the asking price ended up being. Made it one of those things where you'd be foolish not to do it.
I agree.
But
Any team would.
Yeah, but I also think that his athleticism, if he's right, if the arm is, if the shoulder is okay and the foot is okay, which obviously they feel comfortable with, and I'm not talking. Who cares about his videos? Obviously, they don't show him falling over his feet in those videos. Everything's edited to be nice and pretty. But if he's right, he's a top 10 talent at that position. And yeah, he does it in a different way than they've done it here. Obviously, for 20 years, they had the one guy. But I know Josh is, not that he had a problem with Brady and what they were doing with Brady and winning Super Bowls, but the league has evolved and you're starting to see more mobile quarterbacks. That's become a thing. And certainly when he's right, there's few that are as mobile as he is. So I think I'm excited to see what it's going to look like if he's right. And that to me is the only way he doesn't win the job to me is if he's not right. If he's not right physically, or if for whatever reason he just can't pick up the playbook. But I keep pointing to people like he took the Norv Turner offense in 2018 and he was having, I thought, at least as a pure quarterback, he was having his best year.
Yeah.
So
was that the year he got hurt?
Yeah.
Like midway through? Yeah.
They were 6-2. He was completing 68% of his passes, which is way above his normal percentage. So I think that's in him. I think that they can get that out of him. And if they can get that out of him, then all those people that were, shoveling dirt on him are going to be like, well, you know what? They might still be the best team in the AFC East.
I think.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think you really raise a good point about Josh. I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten that, not to use a culinary analogy, but he, I'm sure he's excited to have more groceries to cook with, different groceries to cook with, because he's just been, I'm sure, even at a certain point, no matter the level of success, you do get a little complacent and maybe bored with the same game plan for 10 straight years. I don't remember how many years he's been with us.
Yeah, and I think there are also, I think you saw a couple times last year, just maybe a level of frustration because Tom, Tom is so particular. And, I remember asking him a question about McDaniels, a question about N'Keal Harry. And, the message I think wasn't to us, but it was more to Tom. Like, we tended to know what we're doing here. So, trust that we're doing the right thing and, that this could work out if you sort of are willing to kind of grow with it. And I think Tom last year was at the point where he's like, well, you know what? I'm just going to throw to Julian every freaking play.
Yeah.
And James is my safety valve. And I'm not, whatever. I'm not feeling this. And I think, Josh obviously managed to go to the playoffs with Tebow. Who couldn't throw, and they had to do a lot of different things with that offense. I think really for Josh, it's a huge year because I know Josh can resuscitate. Cam's been hurt. That's really been the problem. But if Josh could turn Cam into a 65% passer for the season, and they go to the playoffs and they sort of unleash, this new version of Cam, then I think Josh vaults to number one on everyone's wish list to be a head coach next year. And I think you've seen the last couple of years after what happened with Indianapolis that, I think he wanted a job last offseason and he only got the one interview in Cleveland and he didn't get that job. So I think it's a huge year for Josh too, just sort of reestablishing himself as this. It's not just about Brady. I had a lot to do with this too.
There he is. Yeah. You're obviously a lot more connected to Tom Brady than the two of us, slightly. What's your outlook for Tom's season down there? Happy belated birthday to him, by the way.
He is, the cake.
Yeah, you guys can split that.
Got you a
That's what
joint
that was
cake.
for.
I think you're seeing it. He's incredibly
motivated. Great. Yeah,
he's incredibly motivated, and he can say what he wants. And I know he's taken the high road, at least publicly, since the end of the season and since going to Tampa. But human nature is he wants to stick it to Bill, and just to remind him, you didn't you didn't think I could do this, or you didn't think I could do it at the level that I did it at before. And now that I have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and I got Gronk to come to Tampa, and OJ Howard and Cameron Braid, and on it goes, that if you had given me more, you'd see the results. And to me, the only thing that's going to hold him back from having a really big year is his health. And that's sort of the sneaky thing that no one wants to talk about because he doesn't miss games, but it's something I've sort of harped on, especially the last 2 years. He's had a lot of physical issues that have impacted performance. No, it hasn't cost him playing time. He's been out there, but the shoulder last year was a thing. The ankle was a thing. The year before, the sprained knee for 6 weeks, and he was not the same quarterback. And it nearly, I mean, they went in the tank, and we all thought, you know, at 9-5 or whatever they were, 8-5, whatever it was when they lost 2 in a row in Denver. I mean, in December, you're like, it's not happening this year. And then, you know, they got healthy on the Jets and Bills. They went generally more as a power running team down the stretch, and they won a Super Bowl. So they kind of they probably weren't the best team, but they were the best team at the end, and they were the best coach team, and they coached the pants off Sean McVay in the Super Bowl. So to me, that's the thing. Can he stay healthy? You know, and that's an interesting part too, because then that's the marriage of what Brady likes to do and what Arians likes to do. And Arians is constantly they're a team that pushes the ball down the field. And that's not how Tom has operated for the better part of the last 10 years. So you hold on to the ball for another second. That gives a guy another second to get to you and you know, stick his helmet into your rib cage or roll up on your leg by accident or whatever. And, you know, can the body handle that at now 43? Because it struggled at 41 and 42.
God, that's such a crazy number to hear out loud. 43-year-old playing elite level quarterback.
He does. I mean, like, you hear him talk today, and it's the you know, again, that's that answer. I have the answers to the test. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do to me that I haven't been through and dealt with. It's just a matter of physically, can I keep doing it? And he says, I can, and I will. And the jury's out, you know.
Got to do it.
He's in uncharted territory.
Well, Mike, you've been super generous with your time. So I actually, this is the last question. We'll get you out of here on this. Back in 2014, the infamous game where the Pats got the break speed off them against the Chiefs.
Great game.
This is a legitimate question. I don't know if this was you or not. Were you the one that asked Belichick? Okay, let me frame the question.
The ball's on you, man.
So this is interesting. So this is when I worked at NBC or CSM.
Yeah.
So Tom Curran and I were at the game, and as we're watching the game, we're like, quarterback seeing ghosts. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Hasn't looked good for the first 3 weeks of the season on top of this. So we're kind of going back and forth, and I was like, we have to ask about the quarterback. And so we were in the elevator. We're going down with about 4 minutes left in the game, and we're kind of going back and forth about how we wanted to do it. And I'm like, well, let's just go good cop, bad cop. Bill's got a better relationship with you than he does with me. So I'll ask that question. When you come over the top with maybe something that leads him back in a positive Brady direction. And we knew, like, going in, the thing that gets forgotten about that is when I went on the air right after that question was asked, we went out there to TV right afterwards. And I remember Bob Newmeyer was our host. And I said, if Jimmy Garoppolo ends up as the quarterback this year, at any point, then something has gone really, really wrong. And whether that's Brady falling off the table or Brady getting hurt, there was no way that Jimmy was better than Tom at that point in their career. You would argue still at this point of their careers. So it was just more of a matter of like, let's put Bill on the record. And he went on the record without using a single solitary word. So it was whatever, like I know I got a lot of hate from that.
No, listen, you had the balls to ask the question. So,
right.
Well, we run into this with Bill all the time is that people, he's not going to answer that question. It doesn't matter whether he's going to answer it or not. Our job as reporters is to at least ask the question. What he chooses to do with the question after we give it to him it's anyone's prerogative. I ask you a question, you can do whatever the hell you want. You don't have to answer it. You can go on some diatribe about something else. You can be direct. You can tell me I'm an idiot. Whatever you want to do, that's your right to answer the question the way you want to. So
Right.
it's my right as a journalist to ask it the way I want to. And we got something out of them.
Great clip. Yep.
You know?
Was that
That's
no.
that's one of my favorite clips.
Was that the on to Cincinnati week?
Yes. So
It
then,
was, right?
well, so
Later that
yeah,
week?
that was after the Kansas City game. We asked
Yeah.
that. And then Albert Breer was the one who sort of, and Albert was working in NFL Network at the time.
Uh-huh.
Albert was the one who sort of got Bill to just keep going. We're on to Cincinnati. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't want to have any more conversations about Brady that week, you know? So it was like, and hey, that team galvanized around their quarterback. I mean, Gronk.
That was the turning point.
Yep.
Yeah, because Gronk, the following
100%.
week, when they kicked the crap out of Cincinnati, Gronk was practically crying in his locker after the game.
Really?
You know, you guys were, you know, sort of like the Terrell Owens moment, like, that's my quarterback. And he was like,
Yeah.
basically, you guys are like, this guy's, he puts in so much work and he does so much, you know, like, it wasn't about him. And we were kind of like, well, the question wasn't really directed to take him down a peg, but that's the way it was interpreted. So whatever.
The verbatim of the question was just, Bill, after this week, would you consider evaluating the quarterback position? That was it, right?
Yep.
That was it. So it was like,
and the wording
Sorry,
of that,
bro.
and again, this is just kind of to take you into like that 15-minute window as we're having this conversation with Tom. He and I were talking about it. And then I said to him at one point when we were having like, how am I going to say this? I said, well, you know, he always talks about, we'll evaluate that position like we evaluate any other position, whatever you're talking about, safety.
Good point. Yep.
He just did it this week when he was talking about Cam.
Yep.
He said, we'll treat that position like we treat any other position. So that's why the word evaluate came up, because that's a word that he uses.
Sure.
Talks about his team. So yeah, it was just kind of like I said, I got a lot of hate from it, but I don't regret it. And I think it was a fair question. And like I said, it was a fair answer. He gave us the answer without saying a word. Just that reaction, he gave us the answer.
Dan and I
never
talked
asked a
before the show,
question.
and we agreed that it was fair.
Yeah. I've never asked a question that cool before in my life. And I've been asking questions for going on 30 years now, give or take. No, that's a great question.
Sometimes you ask questions. I remember I was younger and I was asking Matt Light a question, and I was like going around in circles. And instead of just being direct, and I think it happens a lot with people that especially when you're younger, there's an intimidation level when you're in the locker room or whatever. And I clearly was probably a little intimidated, and I couldn't get it out. I went around in circles, and then I just looked at him, and he's like laughing at me, and I was like, "Can you help me out?" And he's like, "Nope." He's
Nice.
like, all right, whatever.
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
Shout out Matt Light.
Yep.
All right, Mike.
All right, Mike.
Guys,
We'll let you go. Real quick, thank you, man, for coming on. Before we officially sign off, where can people find you online? What's the best place for our listeners to follow now that they got introduced to you if they haven't heard you before?
Twitter, it's just at Mike Giardi. It's Giardi. I think that's my same thing on Instagram. Although Instagram out of season is mostly my dog.
Nice.
But in season, I'll give you some videos and we'll do some stuff there as well.
Perfect.
And then obviously NFL Network, we're on all the time.
And you can confirm you are on television tomorrow, August 7th, 2020.
I've got the text right here.
Okay.
Hey, Patriots quarterbacks are talking tomorrow. You want to do TV?
Wow. Side note, Patriots quarterbacks talking tomorrow. Put that on the record.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume to each other, but.
Oh, there's actual, they're making like 20 people available tomorrow. Most of the coaches are making each quarterback available, obviously through Zoom or whatever they have a team. So,
Big day.
Hoyer, Stidham, and Cam Newton.
We'll be in the scrum. I'll if it's in Zoom like all these meetings have been,
we'll just hack.
I'll raise my hand, and that's just me saying hi to you. I don't want to interrupt the call or anything, but that's us saying hi.
It's like the classic thing in school. Oh, do you have your hand up? Oh, I was just scratching my head. I was just stretching. All right, Mike, you're a good sport, man. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time. We obviously an open invite. We'd love to have you back anytime. Maybe once the season gets going or after the season. But all right, Morse Code Podcast, Mike Giardi, NFL Network. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.